This is Success in Excess, where elite founders, lawyers, and clinic owners engineer success through strategy, scale, and systems. Powered by GrowthX.
Welcome back to Success in Excess, the podcast where we explore the journeys of leaders who push boundaries, redefine industries, and prove that success isn't about limits. It's about building something bigger. I'm your host, Tarun Singh, founder of GrowthX, America's #1 law firm marketing agency and revenue accelerator, with over $120 million in results and the go-to accelerator for firm owners who want to dominate their market and leave nothing on the table. GrowthX is your partner in that journey for exponential results. Today's guest is a powerful example of courage, resilience, and reinvention. Born in Uruguay, raised in South Florida, he built nearly 2 decades of experience defending major corporations, rising to shareholder and head of the product liability practice group at a national defense firm. But in 2022, he made a bold pivot, founding Galimidi Law, PA, a boutique firm dedicated to providing individuals and families with the same high caliber representation usually reserved for corporations. He's been recognized as a super lawyer, holds the prestigious AV preeminent rating from Martindale-Hubbell, and is celebrated by clients and peers alike for his integrity, tenacity, and results. Everybody, please welcome Emanuel Galimidi. Emanuel, thank you for coming on the show. We appreciate you and looking forward to hearing what you have to say today. You've built a great firm, you've scaled it, and you're one of the top performers in the field. I mean, you really got this thing down to a science. And let our listeners know today what it takes to be that top performer in today's legal industry. Thanks. Let's get started. So, in reality, how did you get started? I mean, you came from Uruguay, you've worked your ass off time and time again, and now you've risen to the top. But really, we want to know what was the budding start of this story? How did you come from?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you very much for the incredibly warm welcome. I very much appreciate that. I guess to answer your question, the first time I ever thought about practicing law was probably 10th grade. I was playing a bunch of sports, not very well. So I wasn't giving up any huge career plans, but I was still playing a lot of sports for the school I went to. And I heard about maybe 2 weeks in that the school was starting a debate program. So I tried out for the team, joined the class, loved it from day one. Didn't know anything about it except for what I learned that day. And then I think the following week I dropped whatever sports I was doing to focus solely on that. So that's I think the first time I can remember this idea being born on some level.
And that, that's usually the case. If you like to argue, you're generally going to be a great attorney.
That's not wrong, but I will say this. The best lawyers I know are very good at, I don't want to say avoiding conflict because that's not the right way to frame it, but more so working through it, because that's really the key to all of it. Because if you spend your day fighting, you don't have a lot of time to generate clients and even less time to make the clients happy.
And, it's much easier, stress-wise, if you can settle a case, through mediation, negotiations, communications, without having to go through all the robust trial and whatnot. It's more cost effective, and a lot of times it helps the actual victim in the case, the person that's seeking justice, because that can be drawn out a year plus timeline, and they're trying to start their recovery and they can't until that process is finalized. So go on. My apologies.
I completely agree. If it's possible, that's always the best route. I try and explain to folks, especially at the beginning, when they're seeking a measure of justice, which is oftentimes difficult to find in this business. I explain to them that while we may be able to recover money for them, sometimes substantial, the time, the energy, the effort, the emotion, all of it that goes on their end, I can't get that back. There's no there's no verdict form that allows me to say, oh, and my client's also awarded 733 hours of their life back. That doesn't exist. It's just simply the money. That's something that I think sometimes folks have a difficult time grappling with at the beginning, is the emotional toll it's going to take, this kind of dark cloud that's always over your head, as you're going through therapy or surgery or what have you, even even in things that are unrelated. You're going to your child's graduation or whatever is happening in your life, and you have the specter of this case looming over you. So yes, I agree with you, Tarun, 100%. If something can get resolved without taking a case to trial, great. But the reality is some cases deserve their day in court and require it.
And, that's when the defense attorney is doing their job. I mean, it's their job to protect the insurance company, and it's your job now as, working plaintiffs to protect your clients. And I think you know this better than anybody. I mean, you literally not only come from the other side, you've excelled at it at such a high level. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, not only were you, in that field for 2 decades, you ended up becoming a shareholder and one of the head of product liability practice group, which is a national defense firm just for this type of stuff. And now here you are, you got your own firm and you're basically defending the same people that you were working against, which is amazing. And it shows really a testament to who you are as a person, your mind, the skill set that you possess, and your ability to diversify, yourself as needed. You know, in that aspect, one of the questions I do want to ask you is, did your psychology background before you got into law, did it ever help you out in your litigations or when you're advocating for clients or just handling mediations at all?
It did to some degree in understanding that most of what someone is trying to relate to you, especially in this field and in these situations, comes from a place of fear, comes from a place of anxiety, uncertainty, and I don't even mean that as far as the client. I mean that a lot of times from the lawyer on the other side, because that's just the truth. Especially when I was a defense lawyer, you had to answer to a lot of people, some of which understood the issue, some of which didn't. So in trying to explain, let's say, the value of a case or what the exposure was, you had to recognize that the person on the line has their own stuff going on to try and kind of sift through that, right? So you can convey the message and explain exactly what's going on. But that is, magnified, I will say, and I've seen it on the plaintiff side when you're dealing with an actual injured party. There's all that, times 10 in terms of what they're going through, especially the more catastrophic the loss or the injury, the more magnified that issue becomes. And the more I think I do rely to some degree on my background in psychology and trying to work through that and counsel people to get to where they want to go.
Bringing that up, taking them where they want to go. You want to be able. So one of the mission statements of the firm, right, is being able to bring corporate level experience and service to family members and just modern, just the regular people out there. So it's not that it's just this disparity of you got big insurance company fighting the little guy. They just basically take whatever is given because I mean, that's what they have to do. I mean, your vision at the firm has been so tremendous. Tell us how you planned and how that plan has turned into Gallup Law over the past couple of years.
So one thing I noticed when I was making my decision, or even before that, just kind of observing a lot of plaintiffs firms, some that I worked with as a defense lawyer did a fantastic job and were very good. But I noticed a lot, especially the larger these plaintiff firms got, the less personalized the service was to the client. You could just see it. You could tell they hadn't met their client before a deposition or barely at mediation. They'd spoken to him about anything, and a lack of sophistication. And I felt that that's something that, in starting my own practice and going to the other side of the V, if you will, that's something that I could bring, was that level of expectation, because when you're dealing with CEOs, CFOs, COOs, there's a certain expectation they have in terms of the accuracy of the communication, the consistency of the communication, the transparency in the communication that that the average person who's been injured also deserves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what happens is people don't really, kind of go back to what you were talking about. In the United States and pretty much most countries, there's a unit of measurement that they use to, for all purposes, fix the problem, right? That's what we call it. And that unit of measure is money. And as hard as you work, Emmanuel, when somebody loses their child to a catastrophic accident or medical malpractice or anything like that, yes, money can help with the bills and things like that, but it's never going to fill that void or that gap in their heart. And that's where, like, counselors like yourself come into play, where, yes, we can't bring them back to life. We can't give you the time back. We can't give you the opportunities back with that person, but we can make sure that you're given, adequate peace of mind beyond that fact. And that's what we're fighting for. We're fighting for that peace of mind so you can move forward amicably with your life and just, keep it in a good, strong, narrow path. Now, one of the things that I think is extremely interesting is, Miami is one of the hottest personal injury markets in the United States. I mean, it's packed with PI firms. What makes your approach, your team, or even, I mean, I gotta say, you got a lot of balls, because opening up a firm, a PI firm in, downtown Miami, like, you gotta have a lot of guts and, like, know what you're doing, and you've done it successfully. So tell us, why the approach and what makes your team different.
So I guess I'll begin with the why. Why do it? And I agree with you. Miami is incredibly competitive. I don't know if there's any markets that are more competitive, maybe equally. New York, LA. I would think Chicago to some degree, maybe even Houston. It's
Big.
there are not many. Let's say there are not many that are on that level, right? So, and I'm probably being generous, but either which way, I'll tell you. For me, it was kind of a little bit different. So I'd spent about 15 years at my prior firm, and kind of rose through the ranks. Let's say from your run of the mill auto case work, and slip and falls, and then kind of graduated up to bigger injuries, wrongful death, and then ultimately opening up the product liability division, which was a big step for the firm. When I started at that firm, there were about 12 lawyers. By the time I left, about over 100 lawyers.
Wow. Wow.
So yeah, so it was a big growth, and I was grateful to be part of that. But one thing I realized was, while things were going great, financially I was doing well. I had a fantastic team. I enjoyed the people I was working with. There was still something gnawing at me,
Mm,
to be honest with you, that I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And that gnawing turned into resentment. And I started to some degree, resent myself, because I knew I could be doing something more. I knew I should be doing something different, but it was so comfortable, right? And there was, and I couldn't, on a piece of paper, I couldn't tell you, well, this is wrong, that's wrong. No, because it was all right. Everything made sense. And I was where my trajectory was supposed to be taking me. But nevertheless, there was still something there, until ultimately one day I was talking to a friend of mine who had actually brought me onto the firm many years earlier, and he had gone plaintiff in a separate field. And we were talking, and I said, okay, you know what, let me do some math and see what this looks like for me. And ultimately, I molded up, because you have to do the math, right? Because I'm basically letting go of all my clients and starting from zero. It's not going from a big plaintiff's practice, taking 40, 70 cases and starting your own thing, which is still, no small feat,
yeah.
but it's a different dynamic than zero to, okay, well, now I'm at the basement again. And how do I climb up? But to answer your question, sorry about that. To answer your question, it was, what do I fear more? Do I fear staying here another 10 years? And now most of my career has gone by and I didn't do anything different, or from my perspective, more meaningful? Or do I just risk it, and knowing that no matter what happens, no matter which way that goes, I will have answered the question, right? I will have done the thing.
You want to have any?
So for me, it was, yeah, for me, it was, what's worse, watching everything go by, right? Or F it, roll the dice, take a shot at it. And fortunately, through a lot of planning, but fortunately I've been, very successful, and the firm has begun to grow.
With that, you bring up a very important topic. And if, wanting to let it grow, wanting to keep on moving forward, and just saying at the end of the day, you got to take a risk. When it comes to this field, when it comes to any business, personal injury, criminal defense, I don't care if you're opening up an ice cream shop, there's a risk. And that risk is why you're able to be rewarded, because you were able to not say, hey, you could go safe and steady and, get your six-figure salary and work at a firm for 20 years, and hopefully they bring you on partner, and then you still work. And, or you can start your own firm. You got the chops, you got the know-how. Yeah, you might not come with any clients, but you've already learned how to do all that. And at that point, it's literally a 6-month waiting game, right? You got some disbursements, you got some little positions out there like that, but at the end of 6 months, going into 9 months, you would have recouped your funds. You would have started making a good positive cash flow. But the real catch to that is you're in the top 1% of people because 99% of people aren't willing to be uncomfortable. They're not willing to take a risk. They want to know, how much am I going to make this week? How much am I going to make next month? Is it a guarantee? And if it isn't, oh, I can make $20 with this guy guaranteed, or I can make $100 over here, but I don't know if it's going to happen. It's dependent. And really, it all starts with you. It starts and ends with you, right? You can make $1 million, 10 million, 100 million, or you can do nothing with it and be broke. And at the end of the day, if you're willing to bet on yourself, that's the most control you're ever going to get out of any bet that you ever have. So you've been recognized across the board, as an AV preeminent rating for Martindale Hubble. You've also been recognized as a super lawyer. You're also recognized as one of the top 100 trial lawyers in the United States. I mean, the awards keep on coming, and I'm assuming most of these happened post starting the firm, correct?
The super lawyers have been nominated before when I was a defense lawyer. I was fortunate enough to be nominated now as a plaintiff lawyer, and these come from your peers. They're not awards that you pay for. There are some out there that you
Yeah.
pay for, but which it's a different discussion. But in any event, yeah. So that was that, and then the AV rating came, I think, a little bit before I left my firm. I don't really recall, but no. But I'm grateful for all of those. But to me, the ones that always mean the most are the client reviews. When clients are happy and they leave you that 5-star review, like any business, you feel good because, okay, I did a great job. I helped them out. I took them to where I had said I would, and they're happy, which is the most important thing.
And most people don't understand that those reviews, they think it's just a simple review. Those reviews are one of the strongest factors when it comes to not only your SEO, but your positioning in the pack three, which is, being in the tops of maps, being in the top of the search, being in the tops of, references. People get lazy. How many firms I personally know that have been around for 20, 30 years, and when it comes to them actually getting reviews, how are you in practice for 30 years and you have 17 reviews, right? You have 25 reviews when you're taking on cases every month. And sometimes a lot of attorneys say, hey, I don't want to annoy my client. I don't want them to irritate them. But the reality is this: if you did good work by them, and at the end of the day, if that work is actual substantiated and you say, okay, I did a good job, not you just claiming it, there's no reason for them to not take the 30 seconds to fill out, hey, Emmanuel was great to work with. He really helped me out. He was very clear and transparent about everything. Boom. Now, Google recognizes that there's an algorithm in Google, right? It's called like an Exxon algorithm. This Exxon algorithm, and not like Exxon like gasoline, but it's like Exxon like that algorithm actually tracks multiple aspects of your reviews. How often are you getting reviews? Where are the reviews origination point? Time of day of origination? And how long does it take for you to actually respond to those reviews? And the fifth and one of the most crucial ones is, what keywords are in those reviews, right? And people think it's just a review, it's going to build it up because people think I'm good. When people, like, let's say if I went to your firm and I said, you guys do a very special type of personal injury law. You guys handle aviation. Not a lot of firms handle aviation injury law. So if I was to say, hey, Galimidi Law, it was great with me, based down in Miami, working with them on a recent, airplane accident injury case, aviation case. Now what's going to happen is, since you didn't put it in the system, and I did, somebody that's not getting paid, somebody that's supposedly a non-biased party, now it's going to automatically rank you for those keyword terms because there's no sifting through the material to really check whether or not it's valid or not. Because yes, you could write about it on your website or a blog or on your social media, but they're going to take that with a grain of salt because it's you. If you call yourself the best, I mean, but just that. I've seen recently a client of mine that was able to increase their reviews from around 60 reviews. And I said, be proactive, reach out to some old clients, keep it moving forward. They were able to generate another 70 reviews. They took themselves from number 13 on page number 2 to number 4 on page number 1. And the craziest part, all you have to do is give out, you don't have to spend any money. I mean, yes, they got a review system, like an AI system right now that allows reviews to be done instantaneously. But simple things like that, which also brought in pipeline flow. In that 1 month, we saw an increase of inbound leads, qualified leads by about 60% inbound. So it's like, it speaks numbers and volumes, but why don't people do it? And that goes into one of our next discussions. You're actively scaling your firm, right? You are using systems. You are running, a high level personal injury firm that handles multiple verticals in the PI space. What are you guys doing now and what hasn't worked? So basically, what hasn't worked and what's currently working when it comes to generating and closing cases. So actually getting cases, not leads, but acquisitions.
So I will say what hasn't worked is I think the SEO side when it comes to, you have a lot of these services out there that will, write you blogs and kind of help you put some information together, like you type it up and you work through it. And then maybe they'll help you tweak it or stuff like that. And that really has not been great. As far as what has worked, a lot of the old, you know, tried and true methods. I mean, my referral network continues to grow. A lot of the in-person stuff really works, and it's something where I think people went away from that for a while because SEO became such a big feature, and it still is, and it's still very important if it's done right.
If it's done.
But which is like a huge more important than anything else. But I think that the tried and true referral systems really work well. Yeah, I think that's what's worked the best.
Now, in that in person, and we see this as a result. So one of the things, and that's actually you can't get better than referral, right? And what is a referral? A lot of people say, "Oh, referrals are great." They are great. Why are they great? Because if you look at a standard sales process that may require 1 to 5 touches, when you have a referral, right, majority of those touches that you do in the general sales process is building trust and confidence. But when you have a trusted person, so if my best friend came up to me and said, "Hey, Emmanuel is a great personal injury attorney. You should check him out. He's in Miami. You're in Miami. You put two and two together." I don't have to approach you, Emmanuel, now and figure out, can I trust him? Do I have confidence in him? Is he going to rip me off? None of those things. So now it's a quick conversion. But in that aspect, the only issue that we've seen over the years, and you're still budding, so you're still growing. You guys started in 2022, right? You're almost at your 3 year mark, or have you surpassed it?
Yeah, it's just about 3 a.m.
Congratulations. And you'll notice this down the line. Generally, let's use a round number. Let's say $1 million in revenue a year. And let's say if a firm has a diversity of paid ad campaigns, social media, SEO, referral network, and then, overflow from other big firms that maybe they don't want to take on this type of case or they don't have bandwidth at the moment. Referrals come in at the highest conversion rates, but the lowest revenue retention rates. And that's only because, you talk to some of these older guys and they're like, "Hey, we're doing great. We're on referrals." And then the question is, how much have you grown in the past 5 years running on referrals? They get cases. The cases are consistent, but you're not going to go from 3 cases a month or 30 cases a month. You're not going to go from 30 to 50 on referrals. You'll get a consistent 28, 29, 31, 27, 29. But the goal of this is use them, build out new leads, build out new clients. Then they end up getting cycled into the referral system. So your referral system keeps getting bigger and it's kind of like your backup. Think of it as your savings account, and then your new leads are your checking account, and that continues to build. And before you know it, you're a very robust referral system that for all, let's say for majority of people that just start their firms, just the money you make off of referrals is, double their monthly reoccurring revenue just because you built it out. But you're doing an amazing aspect on that. So how do you meet these people in person specifically for your firm?
So I try and when I started my practice, I made a list of people that I was in kind of consistent contact with that I knew from very, very well. I guess my formula basically was anybody that I can pick up the phone or text or email and they will get back to me within less than a week, let's say, in all forms. Meaning, so somebody that I can text and they'll text me back 5 minutes later, to somebody who I maybe don't know as well, but I email them or whatever the case may be, and they will circle back around. So that was basically my formula. And I put together um, uh, uh, a database, let's say, of all these people that I thought I could reach out to kind of let them know that I was starting my practice and begin creating those, either maintain those relationships, but modifying the way they saw me. If it was someone that I didn't know that as well, either former lawyers or former adversaries, let's say, whatever the case was, and then begin reaching out to them and letting them know what I was doing, how I could help them in this new role, if there were things that I could help with my old firm, whatever the case may be. And the ones that I was able to maintain contact with, I still do, and I reach out to them, and I have either coffee or lunch, whatever I can with everyone, probably once a quarter if I can, if not maybe 3 times a year. So that's kind of what I do in that regard, plus any events that I attend.
So I want to kind of go over structures, right? You've grown your firm. It's been 3 years. What is the structure? Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years when it comes to, are you looking to bring on associates, partners, paralegals? Like, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years, as South Florida's top personal injury firm? Like, how do you want your vision and where do you want your story to go?
So I think for me, the vision in bringing on additional lawyers is if I'm able to, if the path makes sense ultimately, to bring on more experienced lawyers, additional ones that have experience, not so much brand new lawyers, because I learned just from my own experience, it's a bit of a challenge in growing that way. That's a good approach if you're one of these mega billboard firms. Then yeah, then that makes sense from a revenue perspective. But for the practice that I've created and continue to grow, hiring lawyers that see the world the way that I do in terms of how to move a case and what to do next, and allowing them to express their personality, let's see, in a case, but within the same framework as I do, that to me makes the most sense, because now I know that if I have a case working with, Jane Smith or John Smith, whoever they are, I know the client's in good hands, and I don't have to be there for every single conversation
The way.
because I already trust that they know what they're doing. And, and we talked about this a little before. I think when it comes to growing a law firm in today's world and the advantages that AI brings, you aren't as reliant anymore on the same type of staff that would have been required, 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, staff nowadays, you're better off if you're going to grow a firm. The direction that you're even talking right now is probably the most succinct, laser focused ideology of how you should pursue it, because a lot of the admin work AI can get done. So if you're going to invest, might as well invest in an attorney that's experienced, that can have you support you versus babysitting them. But as we come towards the end of the podcast, one of the things that, we really want to focus on is, so you have your vision, you want to hire more experienced attorneys in the future so they can actually support the firm rather than you being teaching of them. Now, outside of that, what about Emmanuel outside of being a personal injury attorney? Where do you see your life in the next 5 years and the growth that you want to, have for yourself?
Good question. I think to grow my involvement in the community. I'm pretty involved now with some nonprofits. I'm looking into joining the boards of one that I have in mind. So I think that's probably where I'd like to see more growth on my end, is to continue that community involvement, and grow that.
Huh. Well, see, at the end of the day, this is why you were on the podcast, Emmanuel. You're a top performer. You started your own firm. You went from being in defense and you did it extremely well to now doing plaintiffs, and you're doing that extremely well. Literally, you jumped from one pot into another and you're dominating the market as we see it.
Thank you.
Firm is growing. You have a future community organization wise, as well as a structured path for your firm. If somebody needs you, they're in South Florida or the surrounding areas and they have a PI issue, where can they reach you?
Sure. The two easiest ways are my website, GalimidiLaw.com, GalimidiLaw.com, or of course they can call the office 786-273. Ask to speak to me directly. I try and speak to as many prospective clients, initially on my own as much as I can, just so I can see how I can help them best. And I'm also on social media. Instagram is probably where I'm most active, and that's at Galimidi_law.
Guys, that's today's episode. Emmanuel, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
if you need a manual, if you're looking for Galimidi Law, if you have a personal injury situation in South Florida, check out the description. All their contact information is there. You can reach out to them day or night. They're here to support you, and they're one of the best, not only in the country, but probably the best in South Florida. They're a boutique firm that really pushes it forward. Guys, it was great having you today. Please subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment, and remember, when you're scaling a law firm, think about sustainability before just focusing on revenues, because volatility is the killer of a firm. Grow softly, wealth whispers, riches are loud. Be smart, scale smart. Until next time, guys, have a great one.
Own your growth. Scale with systems powered by GrowthX. Subscribe to Success in Excess for those who lead with precision and scale with purpose.